Namaskar viewers. Hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha. You're watching Perspective. 22nd of April 2025 marks the 55th anniversary of Earth Day, the day earmarked in the global calendar to raise awareness about environmental issues and encourage action to protect it. Not that we don't need to do it on any of the other days, but this day definitely serves as a reminder for all of us of what a beautiful planet we've got and why no one else but we must protect it. The global theme of Earth Day 2025 is Our Power, Our Planet, bringing the spotlight on the need to harness renewable energy in order to build a healthy, sustainable, equitable and prosperous future for all. The aim is to unite countries behind renewable energy with the goal of tripling the global generation of clean electricity by 2030. Now, renewables play a critical role in clean energy transitions. The deployment of renewables for electricity generation, for heat production, for buildings and industry, and in transport is one of the main enablers of keeping average global temperature rise below 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. So what is the kind of progress that countries are making towards renewable capacity growth, India's renewable energy journey, and the key policies underscoring India's growing commitment to clean energy and its progress in building a greener future. We'll talk about some of these aspects in this edition of Perspective with two distinguished guests joining us virtually. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General, the Energy and Resources Institute and Chair of the G20 Task Force. Dr. Dhawan, glad to have you with us on this broadcast. And Mr. Arun Kumar Mehta, former Additional Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. Mr. Mehta, thank you for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV. In fact, thank you to both of you for joining us on such an important day to talk about the theme, particularly of Earth Day 2025. Dr. Dhawan, coming to you first. The global theme of Earth Day 2025 is Our Power, Our Planet, drawing the global attention this year towards the need to harness renewable energy, now of course with a goal to triple renewable energy generation by 2030. Your perspective on how significant and timely is this call for global action?
Thank you so much for having me on this show. And I think I don't really have to emphasize, because what we are going through, look at the temperatures in Delhi even today. And we all are talking of climate change. We all are talking of rising temperature. Now, India is a country, we very proudly say that we are amongst the nation with lowest, or among the nations which have lower energy consumption. But let's also look into, and that is largely because of accessibility and affordability. Let's also look at that while we talk of use of fossil fuel, we largely have to import that fossil fuel. Or the other problem is that since we are importing, it is expensive. It definitely adds to greenhouse gas emissions. And with the result, that also makes country non-competitive in the global market. Right. Now let's look at renewables. And of course, renewables is not something new. We are talking of solar energy for over 50 years now. But then at that time, the technology was still developing, and with the result, the cost of, say, solar was far higher than what we were able to produce through coal or other fossil fuels. And therefore, there was always a dilemma that, yes, this energy is cleaner, but it's far more expensive, and who should pay for it? Yes. But today, we are at a stage when it is far more cheaper than the coal. And the fact that the cost of renewable energy in our country, fortunately, because there's plenty of sunshine available, is far lower than many other countries. So there are two advantages. One is that it is cost competitive. And the second is accessibility, because if you go to the rural India, you don't have to create grids. You are not worried so much about what will happen if there is a dust storm and if that wire gets broken, transmission line. So here it is that you can also produce in a decentralized way, even at the household level, at the village level, and so on. So that's going to make change in the entire landscape. Let's look at perishables. If they are not, they have to sell it immediately, but the moment they have renewable energy, they will able to preserve it for some time. They will also be able to do value addition at site. So there are many pluses if we adopt renewable energy. The last point I would like to make at this stage is that India's requirement is going to go up as we develop economically and otherwise. It's going to go up, and therefore it is not that we are making a choice. I'll say it is a necessity that whatever addition we require is through renewables.
You're right. And if we try and understand the roadmap that India has followed, Mr. Mehta, I would like you to come in now. The numbers are quite positive when we look at India's renewable energy progress. So in October last year, which is 2024, our total renewable energy capacity had already crossed the 200 gigawatt mark. So to begin with, talk to us about India's efforts towards not just fulfilling its commitment to clean energy, but building a better future for us all.
I think India's progress has been very impressive. And with the Honorable Prime Minister leading the entire effort, I think a lot of changes have come about and very positive changes have come about. First of all, we should recall that in 2015, under the Paris Agreement, we had committed that we'll reduce our carbon intensity by 33 to 35% by 2030. Now we have updated it and we have said that we will improve it to much higher, 45%. So that's the kind of progress we have been making. And we said that the non-fossil fuel sources will be 40%. Now we are already committing for 50%. So India's progress has been absolutely impressive. And as you said, that you gave a figure, which is very impressive. Let's recall that in 2010, the target was just 20 gigawatt for solar. And today, look at where we're talking about. I think India's journey has been very impressive. And I think let's recall that future is not fossil fuel. Future is renewable. So that is very, very fundamental. Future is renewable. Future is definitely not fossil fuel.
So, Mr. Mehta, if we look at some specific initiatives that have helped us reach that milestone, that have helped us, mark that shift towards renewable energy, what have been some of the commendable efforts that India has made in terms of policies that have helped us reach closer to our goal?
There were two initiatives. One was solar, which was very, very impressive. So there were two components to it. One is the normal solar power plants, and the other was rooftop solar. So we have made progress in both of them, slightly different in solar rooftop and slightly different in other component, but we have made progress. Let's understand that one very fundamental thing we must understand. If you take into account the cost of externalities, which is basically what is the health cost of fossil fuel, what is the cost of air pollution, and you take the other factors, health factors and all other factors, what is the amount that you need to spend to clean the environment, then renewable is already cheaper. Fossil fuel today appears to be cheaper because you are not taking into account all the external problems it creates with it. Mm-hmm. So fossil fuel is not the future, renewable is the future. Solar is one component that we try to take forward. There are areas where wind energy. India has a large potential under the offshore wind power, so that will probably come about. We also tried very hard in terms of fuel cell. We hope that we will, some point of time, make adequate progress in that area, though this is still costly. But the main progress has been in reducing the cost of solar power. Today, it is something around 2.2 rupees or something like that if you do well. And this is very competitive. And I think that if you take all the external problems that fossil fuels create, the journey is now very, very clear. That future is renewable, and that is how it should be. Let me just explain a couple of more points which is important. Apart from reduction of cost, the other problem was the storage technology. So if renewable, you will produce only when the sunlight is there, then you can produce solar power. When the wind is there, then you can produce wind power, and so forth. So it's intermittent. But with the storage technologies improving, I think future is bright. And that's the only way forward. Like you said, planet and people, let's understand that this livable environment was created in 4.5 billion years. And it's not something that we was created in a day or so. So this is an environment, this is a planet, the only one we have. And in terms of climate change commitment and every other commitment that India has made a very good progress. And I think that there were several, including economic factors, have helped India go where it has reached so far. And I'm sure it will reach further.
Sure. Okay, Dr. Dhawan, the fact that, India has made tremendous progress, not just in taking care of our domestic development energy needs, at the same time meeting the global commitments as well. But what role does TERI play in helping us in that journey of energy transition? What is your assessment of the current energy landscape of India? And especially if I talk from the context of renewable energy.
Yeah, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Mehta, the government of India, it's proactive. I must compliment them because of the initiatives, and the Honorable Prime Minister in Glasgow COP, he had announced lots and lots of announcements in terms of that how we are going to become a renewable-led country. With that, it is one signal which is very clear to every citizen of this country is that the government is committed going towards renewable energy. Today, what is voluntary perhaps will become mandatory in years to come. Let's look at the international landscape. When we talk of COP meetings, it is that yes, commitments are made and different countries, depending on how soon they can do, India has also said that by 2070 there will be net zero. Unlike many other countries of the West, where they are saying that their reduction will go like this, we are unique in terms of that we still haven't peaked. We are a developing country and a fast developing country, and therefore our energy requirement in years to come is going to peak further. Right. And thereafter it will plateau, and then that is the time. It also gives us an opportunity that whatever our additional requirements are, let's try to meet them by renewable. The other unique thing about India is that we still have to build. And therefore, we are thinking, or rather very seriously, we are implementing, whether it is in buildings, we are talking of the efficient building design, we are talking of accrediting buildings so that everyone knows what is it they should be doing? Are they on the proper path? So we don't have to break and build. We have to build it for the first time, and it can be as green as possible. The other thing is government is giving subsidies so that the capex to some extent is taken care of. So therefore, if I have a well, I can also afford going for green or clean energy. Now, the role which TERI is playing, and right from the beginning, you'll be surprised that when we were established in 1974 by a Tata group of companies, it was after the energy shock, and our name was Tata Energy Research Institute, and we started looking at renewables way back in 74. And the entire journey for TERI, therefore, has been on renewable sustainability and so on. And what the most recent initiative of TERI is to set up Institute on Energy Transition in Hyderabad. Right. So what we are going to do in that institute is we are going to set up Center of Excellences with government departments. Bureau of Energy Efficiency is the first one to come forward. We are looking towards MNRE, MoEFCC, Ministry of Petroleum, and side by side we are looking at industries to come and set up there. Let's also look at what are the gaps in implementation of renewable. One, of course, is capex. More importantly, it is also that our understanding and responsible use of new energies. And I'll give you one example, like if we take hydrogen. Do we have adequate number of people, colleagues, who will be able to use hydrogen in a responsible way? So you also have to create that manpower who will understand where this new fuel can be used and how it is to be used. The other important component is that it should be inclusive. So energy transition for a big corporate is that how do they go net zero, but let's not neglect our rural population because for them, energy transition means access to cleaner fuel for cooking.
Right.
And therefore, TERI's work starts all the way from improved cook stoves, disseminating those cook stoves, helping small clusters to go use cleaner energy for whatever they are manufacturing, and then the policy for hydrogen, helping in setting up hydrogen hubs and so on. So it's the entire activity related to clean energy that we are involved with. We also take care, or rather we are involved with sustainable infrastructure, which includes sustainable buildings, accreditation of buildings through BREHA. We take care of planning for the transportation sector, which includes highways as well as what kind of fleet should be there, what kind of trucks should be there, logistics.
Right.
So we are involved with all these activities.
Okay, Mr. Mehta, towards meeting the energy needs, we've spoken about the various efforts that are currently underway, but at the same time, towards addressing the pressing challenges of environment change, climate change, to be specific, resource conservation as well, how has the role of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change evolved over the years to collaborate with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy to sort of achieve the goal, which is interspersed with each other, because we need coordination between these ministries to be able to meet our long-term targets. So how do you see that having evolved over recent years?
The Ministry of Environment and Forest always had a very close relation with the Ministry of Renewable Energy. So that was always a very, very cordial and I think a very progressive relationship. And I can't recall a situation in which there was any difference of opinion. Mm-hmm. So they all went together. And what is important that there is a mechanism in the country in which the highest policy decisions levels are there. And I don't think that, at least in case of India, is a problem. That when it comes to climate change or it comes to renewable or it comes to certain commitments globally, which is basically a commitment to ourselves. So there has ever been an issue on any of the matters. So renewable energy, when we discuss, we always used to discuss with Renewable Energy Ministry and what the component they are comfortable with, and that is the progress we have been making. So whenever, for example, when there were a question of what commitments could we make under the Paris Agreement, Ministry of Renewable Energy was consulted, and that's how the whole thing evolved.
A related question, sir, on international commitments and India's climate diplomacy. I'm curious to understand what role do the international funding mechanisms, climate funds, play in supporting India's renewable ambitions?
I think we need to understand the climate politics and climate finance. There was always a talk of new and additional sources of finance, and this I don't think has really fructified. And as far as climate politics is concerned, you may have seen that many countries, we always had a distinction between in the climate change negotiations that they were developed countries and they were developing countries. And that was the beginning of the climate change negotiations, starting with United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So that recognized that there is a difference between developing and developed countries, and there was equilibrium of commitment. So developed countries were supposed to take lead and developing countries were supposed to cooperate. And there was a global understanding that this is how we will proceed. And the idea was to prevent a dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system.
Right.
Basically to say that the agricultural production should not reduce and everybody should progress. So that was the idea. This was one of the few agreements globally in which this differentiation was recognized. Unfortunately, I would say that how the entire thing has developed, I really don't feel that any very great amount of climate finance came in. If you look at Kyoto Protocol in 2006, when this was agreed upon, the people were talking about in terms of $100 per CO2 equivalent of carbon. Nothing of the kind happened. And today, certified emission reductions have anyway gone. And we are now talking of verified emission reductions, trading around $5 to $6, which of course is nowhere near what we were talking about. So I am not so concerned about climate finance because what the distinction between developed and developing is kind of blurred now for reasons which I'm not going to talk today. But of course, some of the developing countries which were there in 90s as a developing country have gone far ahead of where they were. And let's say that, for example, China today being clubbed with the developing countries, probably there is an issue there. So there is an issue there overall. But climate finance, whatever came, India has made good use of it. But let me say that this question of additional and new finances, really don't think that has happened during the climate change negotiations. It's something that we couldn't pull off globally, though there was an agreement. And this is the only agreement in which we had this Annex 1 and non-Annex 1. And so this, to my mind, has been one of the challenges that globally the global community could not really pull it off.
And especially with the geopolitical scenario having changed significantly in recent years, this is an issue which certainly has taken backstage. But Dr. Dhawan, India did take a remarkable initiative when it set up the International Solar Alliance recently. In your perspective, what has been the role and the impact of the ISA globally?
Well, ISA is a membership-based organization. And of course, the dream is one sun, one grid. But then storage and other things. So see, we have to move in steps. The very first thing is that there is an international organization which will look into how to go about, because we also have to see one of the basic problems with solar energy is that the storage cost is very high. On the other hand, if we improve the transmission, then it will be because sun is shining in some part of the globe. So therefore, if we can transmit that energy, that will be a big thing. For that, we have to bring different countries together, and that is what International Solar Alliance have done so far. The membership base is very high, and the countries are talking together in terms of collaboration. And we are developing technologies which will help us in achieving this goal of one sun, one grid. It's going to take a few years, but I'm sure it will happen. As the technology is maturing, the cost of solar production is coming down. So in years to come, through collaborations and through research, it will become reality that we are able to transmit energy over long distances. And the storage costs will also come down and transmission efficiencies will increase.
Okay, Mr. Mehta, the fact that we've made significant progress as far as energy installations are concerned, in also in regard to policy advancements, infrastructural improvements as well across the country. But to move ahead, how are we addressing regulatory, financial, and also some of the infrastructural challenges which will be key to achieving our goals of 2030 and the long-term goals as well?
As far as achieving the goal of 2030 is concerned, I am very confident that India will achieve it. So that I don't think is such a great issue. I think India will achieve that, it will get there. So that I don't think is a problem. As far as the overall thing is concerned, there's a very, very valid question that what are we doing to sort of really catalyze this renewable into the future of India, and what can we do? First thing first, if you take life cycle costs of what we do for any form of energy and include the external costs that we are not adding, I'm again repeating that renewable is already more competitive than other forms of energy. Now, if you ignore the other cost and basically you say that, okay, the profits will go to some individuals and while the damages will be taken by the community, that is not a great idea at all. I mean, it's basically saying that we will stick to fossil fuel because we don't care what happens to the community. I think if we take that into account, I don't think that economics of that favors fossil fuel anymore at all. So my fundamental premise is that with little bit of more awareness, the cost of solar is coming out. Vibha ji very correctly said that the storage costs are still very high, but they have reduced roughly by 90% if you take 2010. So I think there is progress and there is hope. If you take other forms of solar renewables, for example, tidal energy, you take ocean thermal energy, you have many sources, for example, geothermal, wind energy, Wind energy, we have so far by and large something around 45 gigawatts.
Okay.
We could go to much further. So essentially, if you look at the whole bunch of options that we have, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that renewable is the future, and we will adopt renewable, not because it's a cost to us, because it's less costly to us overall in terms of life cycle, and if we include all costs involved. So I personally think that it's a question of awareness building. And let me again also emphasize one more thing that's very, very important to understand. Indians have been very frugal in terms of their energy use. They have, if you look at per capita energy consumption, Indians have been very good about it. They're very, very sustainable. So I think whether it is villages, we have energy demand because currently the current kind of energy per capita we are using is a fraction of what US will be using or the developed countries would be using. So our energy usage will improve. But I am sure that over a maybe in a few years' time, we will be able to take care of these problems because the economics today favors what we are doing.
Okay, okay. Dr. Dhawan, I'll take one last comment from you. So despite the challenges, what Mr. Mehta says is there is progress, there is hope, and there is optimism that India is well positioned to achieve its ambitious renewable energy targets. But what should be the road ahead, according to you, to also solidify India's position as a global leader in clean energy transition?
Yeah, India, to me, it will surely emerge as a leader. And as I said earlier, because this is a country which is on the fast path of development. Our villages, they are connected to the grid, but then the electricity supply is not reliable. And what we really need to do in the decentralized energy production at the village level and make them self-sufficient, whether it is in terms of processing of food, whether it is drying of food, everything over there. So the cottage industries in which we are really, really good, they will get developed. Let's look at transportation. Let's look at anything. And the best example, if you see highways in the country, they are next to none because we have constructed them recently. So here also, when we are talking of buildings, we are talking of entire infrastructure that is to be built, and we will build, and we are very conscious of going green. And therefore, I believe that we'll show the way to the world that development can be green, and it is done by India. So I'll end with that positive note that we will do it and we'll succeed.
Certainly. So we are on a transformative journey, and we are positive, we are optimistic that we will be able to achieve not just the short-term targets. We have a roadmap ready, and the progress is remarkable as far as our long-term commitments are also concerned. So with that, I'll have to wrap up the conversation. Thank you once again to both our guests for joining us for such an insightful conversation. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your valuable time as well. So with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Perspective.